if we go up here, we see we've got a display of 50%. I'll actually change that to 100%, and I'll change the number of particles to a much lower number so we can see it a little bit more clearly. Then I go down to the display operator and I'll show on particle ID. I'll just change the display type to something a bit less obtrusive, dots, and I'll scrub back to the first frame, and you can see that on the first frame, if I select the source and get rid of the logo, it makes it a bit clearer, you can see that there's the number 1 next to that particle. A few frames later we've got particle 2, particle 3, particle 4, particle 5, and so on. Obviously that's very useful when you're working with scripting and you're doing other things which rely on the ID of your particle. And it was this kind of display that led me to suggest to Oleg the idea that eventually led to the operator that I just described to you just now, the free operator, which you can actually download from his website. One thing I found that when I was working with scripts was very commonly, because of the force operator especially, you assign values to the float channel of a particle, or you assign values to the integer channel of a particle, and so forth. And the actual value which is stored in the float has a big effect on how that force is applied. You can use that float value to control how much force is applied per particle. That's very, very powerful. You can tailor your force to every single particle using scripting. But the problem I found was that sometimes I just didn't know exactly what float value was being used with every single particle. So I said to Oleg, wouldn't it be great if, as well as a tick box which allows you to show the particle ID, you could also have another tick box which allowed you to show the value in the float channel per particle. So he took that idea and he ran with it, and improved on it a great deal on my basic idea, and in the end he produced the operator which I just described. And I'd highly recommend getting that from his site, especially if you're working with scripting within particle flow. It's a very, very useful diagnostic tool, being able to show other channel data assigned to each particle. And I understand you can also stack those operators, and you can actually show multiple channels of data on each particle. So very, very useful feature there, and it's completely free. The next option is a very, very simple one, which is what is the color of our particles. So in this case we're going to go for a straight color because we don't really have any other choice, and you can see you can just choose whatever color you fancy, and particle flow will show that color in the viewport. I tend to avoid sort of neutral colors, and by that I mean colors which are going towards mid-gray, and that's just simply because they really blend into mid-gray and you can't really see them very clearly in the viewport. So most of the time I try to keep my particles colors either very bright or pretty dark, so at least you can see them in the viewport clearly. The last option in the display operator only actually comes into effect when you've actually selected particles using the source icon, which is something that I showed in DVD 1, and I'll very quickly run through here again. And what it allows you to do is to use a different display type for any particles which you've selected. So you can see the default is none, and that would mean that if I selected a particle it would actually disappear. So let's try and do that now. I'm going to get particle 4 here. I'm going to go down to selection, turn on selection mode, and I'm going to go down to particle 4, and I've got that selected. And now if I choose ticks, you can see it's actually using ticks on that particle. If I use geometry, you can see it shows the geometry. So that's a very useful feature in certain circumstances. As you can see, it works with whatever particles you've got selected. You can select multiple particles, and as discussed in the first DVD as well, the delete operator will also delete selected particles. That's very useful when you've got a director and you've got a great simulation, but on one of the frames a particle goes right in front of the camera, and it's going to ruin the shot. And you can literally go into particle flow, select that individual particle or group of particles, whatever, and just delete them. So that's a very useful feature. So that's it. You know, you can choose any of these options to be used with the pick particles, and it's just another option to work with if you need it. Okay, that's it for the display operator. Let's move on now to the notes operator.